Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Jacob Kaufman.
Michael Chanel.
And today we're taking a look at a FreePBX phone system. Alright guys, so we're here at Northwest Electric Company. This is where we did our Extra Life 2017 stream, and this is a company I do some IT work for. Michael, you've been here before a couple times. So I was here today, and me and Michael were doing some work on the computers here, and while we were here I was showing Michael the phone system that I set up for Northwest. Now a little while ago they switched their phone system. They switched from their charter phone system they used to have that was an old school PBX, and they switched to Vonage, which they were not happy with at all. You don't have to lean in.
I don't know how far in the frame I am.
You're very far in the frame.
Okay, good.
Now, they weren't happy with Vonage at all. It wasn't giving them enough control over their phones, and Vonage was trying to nickel and dime them for features like voicemail, intercoms, things like that. And I said, I can set up a phone server that does all that stuff for free, basically, right? Because they bought these Cisco phones, and these are Cisco SPA504G phones. And so I set up a FreePBX server, and I wanted to show it off. So we're going to be going through the phones, how they're set up, and then we'll take a look at the FreePBX server and look at what the admin interface for that thing looks like. You've done a little bit of work on phones before. You've taken a class at least.
Yeah, well, we took the same class, actually.
Yeah, that was configuring Cisco phones with Cisco Unified Communications Manager.
Yes.
Right? So FreePBX is a little bit different because it's open source. It's based on Asterisk, and it runs on Linux. So CentOS it's actually based on. So yeah, I think it's cool that we were able to do this powered by free software. And with that, we'll go ahead and I think we'll move the camera over to that other phone across the room. All right, so here's what these phones look like on their screen, the way that they've been programmed. And I'm going to go ahead and clear the missed call notification there. So Michael noted earlier that I got the logo on there. They said Cisco at first. Yeah, so they're a pretty simple setup. We got our time up here in the top left. The top right, I had them display the user's full name. And that stuff is configurable through the phone's web interface. Now, you mentioned that you thought it was interesting you can use Cisco phones with non-Cisco servers.
Yeah, I just, historically Cisco has not been known to allow that kind of thing to happen. So,
yeah.
Did you have to modify the firmware on these at all, or is it stock firmware?
It is stock firmware, but I did have to modify the settings in the firmware. So that was one thing. When you're using Cisco Communications Manager, you can go into the server and set up all of the features of the phone, and it can deploy those settings. When you're using something like FreePBX, since it's a third-party thing, there are some settings you have to set on the phone itself through the web interface, and some stuff that you can set up through the server. So like the extension settings were set on the phone to point to the server. So for each of these phones, the top button is that user's line, their extension, and we assign an extension to each user. This is only a 4-person office, so it was very easy. But then we've got 2 call park buttons, which were a little bit of work to set up since we don't have Communications Manager, and then we have an intercom button on the bottom. I can pick up the phone here and I can dial, we're at phone number 4 right now, I can dial 3, and you can either wait a few seconds so you can hit dial to dial right away, and you can hear that phone on the other side ringing. You want to go pick that up? Hello?
Hello.
Okay, so we can hear each other. This is going to be hard to show on video, but so the phones, they work. Here, why don't you dial that one, or dial this one from over there?
I can just hold the speaker up to this, and I think you'll...
Dial number 3, just so we can get a nice ringing demonstration. Or dial 4, sorry. I keep telling Michael the wrong numbers to dial. Okay, there we go. So you can see it says who's calling you from the internal extension, and we can pick it up, and now we're connected. We've got the timer showing, so that's cool. Now, there are 2 buttons for call parking, like I said, and that's basically where... Can you dial this one more time? Did you dial 3?
It's 4, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, so we can pick this up. So me and Michael are on the phone right now, and I can actually place you on hold just by hitting a call park button. So that call is now parked. I can hang up. And what are you hearing right now, Michael? Is that music?
Music.
Yeah. So right now he is on this call park. So you can actually walk to any phone in the office right now. I can actually pick up our camera here and walk into another room. And we're here in another room looking at another one of their phones. And I can just pick this up and I can hit the call park button. And now you and I are connected on the call again, right?
Yep.
Yep. So that was cool to set up. They wanted a way to transfer their calls that didn't involve having to know if the person was available. Just regular old transferring, it would ring the person's phone and go to voicemail. They didn't want that. They wanted to be able to place somebody on hold and then pick up the call from anywhere else. So the call park button's how to do that. worst tripod.
Call park was a pain in the actual Cisco firmware, so I don't even want to know.
Oh, it was very difficult. That was probably the hardest thing to set up was the one button call park. There's one more button here that's the intercom button. They wanted this for some reason, and now there is one of these phones outside. They've got 4 in the office and 1 out in a shed that they've got. So we can hit intercom. And now I can talk here, and I don't know if it's going to pick up in the audio, but basically I am talking through an intercom, and it's pushing my voice just out loudspeaker through all the other phones, including the one outside, which is kind of neat. So I think their use for that is they can have the receptionist pick up a call. They say, "Hi, thanks for calling Northwest Electric Company. You want to talk to this person? Just a moment." They put them on a call park, and then they use the intercom to let the person know that there's a call waiting for them without having to get up and walk to the other room. That's something that this is all features that their old traditional PBX had built in and that were difficult to replicate with the new digital, call server because it doesn't work the same way in the back end. But we configure the functionality and they're pretty happy with it. So yeah, we can take a look at how these were configured.
Where's the one in the shed?
The one in the shed it's on that side of the building.
Is it like in a building at least?
No, I mean it's like it's one of those metal containers, sort of like a shipping container.
Oh.
You open
Is it outside or inside the thing?
Well, it's inside.
Okay, I thought you meant it was like on the outside. I was like,
no, that would be bad if they had a Cisco phone. All right, and here we are on a screen recording, and I'll actually show you guys how these were configured, like I said. So first of all, like I was saying, we do configure some things through the phone's actual firmware. So this is the configuration utility that comes with it. And it was interesting, when we were working with Vonage, the Vonage setup wizard actually locked this out, so you couldn't get to it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't want you seeing what the actual backend settings for Vonage were, because some of the stuff that Vonage charges for is stuff that you can easily just configure yourself.
Gotcha.
In this control panel. But you can see we're using, I guess we're using DHCP here, because it doesn't actually, the server doesn't talk to the phones. The phones reach out and register themselves with the server. They do have their current gateway and everything, and I did set the DNS. So yeah, we can scroll through here. You can see when the phone was registered at and whatnot. Now if we go through system, I don't think we had to do much under the extensions. If we go to, I should go to the admin login. Here we go. All right, so if we go through here, system is where we configured our primary DNS, and under our phone section, this is where you set up what person's name you want to be configured there. This voicemail number is what number is dialed when you hit the voicemail button on the phone. So *97 is the FreePBX default voicemail number. So we just set that up, and it's an auto dial button for the voicemail. The text logo we saw on the screen, that's where you can configure that. You can also upload an image, but they didn't need that. Down here is where we configure our line keys, and you can see the first line key that's configured to the user's extension is set to extension number 1 for all of them, and it's got their name. The other 3 actually have the extension disabled because those are not extensions that you're dialing or that you're registering as. They're special buttons. And you configure your ringtone down here. Underneath extension 1, this is where you can see we have put in the proxy address is the address of the FreePBX server, and then this is the port that is listening on. These expire every, 5 minutes? Okay, they expire every hour. They have to go and re-register. This is where you put in the actual authentication information for the user's extension that you set up on FreePBX, but then you do have to go and configure that in here. So like Communications Manager from Cisco, it would push all of this stuff from the server. There is a little bit of configuration that you have to do yourself here. So the other extensions we actually don't use for these phones. Now if we switch to the advanced view, so now we can come into extension 1, and at the bottom we've got our dial plan. Here we go. So when we're in the advanced admin section, and that's pretty much what I go to every time I log into these phones' web interfaces. I go to admin and then advanced because you can see so much of the stuff is hidden. So line key 1, we are just registered to an extension. The other line keys are extended functions. So this is function equals busy lamp field. This is one of call park buttons. So busy lamp field is what lets you see if the line is busy or not. So that's what makes it turn red when there's a call parked there, is that section. Plus speed dial is going to, when you hit this button, it's going to auto dial the number. And so then what we are monitoring for the busy lamp field, this is what we're subscribed to for the busy lamp field, is extension 21 for this call park. And it's 21 at our proxy is the FreePBX IP address. then the extension here is what we dial for the speed dial, and it's the same thing. So you can see this is call park 21 for the park 1 button. Park 2 is call park 22, so those match on all the phones. Down here we've got function equals speed dial, extension equals 88. So really you don't need to hit like the intercom button. You don't need to hit the intercom button to get the intercom. You could pick up the phone and dial extension 88, but the intercom button is just acting as a speed dial in that case. So that's how that works.
You weren't kidding. That's a pain.
Yeah, no, it was a pain. And looking this stuff up when there's not a lot of documentation was a bigger pain because Cisco wants you to use their communications manager. So they don't put this stuff really out there. I had to look on the FreePBX forums and things like that for how to get these strings. Because it's kind of confusing. You need to subscribe to a number here and set an extension number to dial because you're doing 2 functions on 1 button. But it works very well. So here we can come over to the actual FreePBX server. This is what it looks like when you log into the admin interface. So up here under applications, we can come down and take a look at our extensions just for the most basic stuff. You can see we've got 4 people, 4 extensions. We also have 1 extension for the outside phone, and then this is an extension for the fax machine because the fax machine does go through the FreePBX server as well. Using a sort of little converter box that just gives it an analog signal out of our digital server. We can take a look at one of these extension configurations. So they've got a password that I'll blank out, and that password you need to put into the phone to enable the phone to configure itself with that extension. We also link ourselves to a FreePBX user, which is how they access their voicemail through the web interface and things like that later. So some of the other applications that we used for this thing were IVR, I think we used, right? So if somebody calls Northwest and nobody picks up, this is going to give them a group voicemail option. So like for this person, dial 1, for this person, dial 2. And we actually came in here and we uploaded a recording of one of the people at the company saying, "Hi, thanks for calling Northwest. For this person, dial 1. For this person, dial 2. So this is where we went and we selected the recording that we uploaded elsewhere on this web interface. Down here, if you dial something that was not an option, then it'll send you to the invalid destination. And then down here is where you actually set the options for the IVR. So this is separate from, this won't generate the recording for you to read the options, but this is where you set what the options are for dialing 3, as you can see in this case, gets you extension 4, and dialing 4 gets you extension 3. Because what I set the extensions up as ended up being different from what they wanted the IVR to be. So let's see, we've also got our parking application down here, and this is where you set that up. You can see in the phones, like I said, the parks they actually start at 20. If you dial 20 while you're on a call, it is going to park that call on 21, and then it'll go up into 29 is the last one. You can see our range there. Now, if you dial 20, the problem is that you don't know where it's getting saved. So for the call park button, we just got one that's always it's going to both dial and pick up from 21. The next one is always going to send to and receive from 22. But if you weren't wanting to tie yourself to physical buttons, you could just have it to where you dial 20, and then the system will actually read you, okay, you've just placed that call on line 24, and then you can dial 24 to pick it back up. But that's where we set that. As you can see here, after 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, after 5 minutes, if nobody has picked up that parked call, just to remind people that it's still going, it will actually ring all the groups in the office once again. And you can configure those ring groups under the ring groups section here. And that's pretty self-explanatory. I can pick up the phone here, and I can dial 100. And it's going to dial all the phones in the office. Now, at first, we didn't have that set up. We had something else set up, which was, I think it was queues. Yeah, we had a call queue here. And what that call queue would do, see, the person who normally sits in this desk that we're sitting at, Michael, is sort of the receptionist when she's here. So she picks up the calls and then transfers to the other people. So I thought it'd be great if we set it up to where her phone rings first, right? Yeah. And then if she doesn't pick up, then other people's phones would pick up. So this will dial, as you can see, her first, and it'll wait. It'll go until her extension's configured time to not have picked up. Then it'll go to the failover destination, which is that ring group for all phones in the office. They ended up not wanting to use that. They just wanted it to point to all phones. But yeah, that was, you can see here, 3 was her extension, and then 0 I think was the order.
This is a complicated application.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of, I mean, just look at all these settings that we're not using.
Yeah,
you know,
this could do a lot if you wanted it to.
It absolutely could. So trying to see what else we can show off here. So when they're getting incoming calls, you can see we can look at our inbound routes here. So we've got their main number is right here. And these are all through SipStation. The SIP provider that they're using is SipStation. So a SIP provider is a phone company basically that is going to receive calls on the telephone network and send it to your IP address. And from there, you've got these inbound routes that decide what to do with them on your call server. So you can see when somebody dials their main number, then it's going to dial their ring group, which is all the phones in the office. This is their fax number, and when somebody dials their fax number, it's going to send it to extension 9, which is the fax machine. Like I mentioned earlier, they've actually got a few other numbers that are very close to those couple of numbers, and the numbers are very cheap to have. They're like $5 a month, or no, they're like $1 a month per number. What you actually pay for is the SIP trunks, which is the number of simultaneous calls you can have incoming or outgoing at a time. But yeah, the other 3 numbers they're not using right now, so it's just on the verification for the inbound calls. But then the outbound routes, as you can see, we've got one outbound route, which is pointing to SipStation. And that is going to go through their 2 trunks, and I'll be blocking some of this out in editing. But it's going to go to the primary trunk first, then it'll fill over to the other one. And those are just when you want to place a call. These are the phone company's identifiers, and we can take a look at those under the trunks section. So this is the caller ID that we're going to use. They want the caller ID to appear as coming from their main line, no matter who's calling out. So that's where we set that. And we can come in here and we can look at the options that we have to set in there to get that working. SipStation is maintained by the same company that maintains FreePBX, so they're integrated together very well. So you can actually come in here and just plug in your SipStation credentials, and it will configure up the trunks for you automatically. You still have to go and set your outbound routes up. And there's a firewall built into, here we go. So yeah, we've got the firewall enabled, and we've got our default interface set to the internet, which means it's going to be blocking. Basically, you won't be able to connect as a phone to this server if you're not on the internal IP address, because it knows what its own IP address is, so it will trust anything from that network, but outside of that, it's not going to talk to you. You can see where those are. Those are the trusted for our own network. And then we've got our Let's Encrypt is allowed through the firewall too, because our certificate here is, it says it's not secure because we're connecting via IP address right now and not domain name. Their desktop computers are pointing to their own DNS server that lets that domain name work. And then, yeah, the certificate works for HTTPS. You've been pretty quiet. Anything you want to see in here? Any questions or anything? For updates, it's pretty easy. We can go to our module admin, and these are all the different modules. These are plugins for FreePBX that are installed. I mean, there's all kinds of them, but it's very easy to just check for updates. Can you see yourself setting one of these up?
Yeah, I could see that at some point, yeah. It actually seems simpler than Call Manager did.
Yeah.
In some regards. Now, it's not going to have all the auto features that Call Manager did, but that was kind of a pain at some points.
This is where intercom's set up. So like I said, if you dial extension 88, it's going to set up an extension. This is the device list, which is all of our extensions, and then it's going to dial them. If you're busy, though, you can see we've got it to skip busy phones, but you can also set it to interrupt calls.
What's that speaker volume override?
Speaker volume override, you can override the speaker volume. So basically, if somebody's turned the volume on their phone all the way down, but you want this to go max blast no matter what, then you can set that up, and it will override what the user has set on their phone with the volume rocker. So yeah, and then there's a couple cool features. If we go to the IP address of the FreePBX server / user control panel, UCP, this is where the user can actually log in with their extension. I'm going to have to see if I can remember. There we go. So here's somebody's extension. You can see we're actually looking at somebody's voicemail right now. Luckily, they don't have any voicemails. But yeah, this is where voicemails would show up. Should I leave a voicemail so we can see it pop up in here?
Sure.
We can do that. So here's a little live demonstration. Here, let me turn the camera back on to make this a little more visual. Get the phone in the shot.
How long did it take you to get this set up the first time?
So it was a funny story. Since the company who did this, or who wanted me to do this, since they switched to Vonage and weren't happy with it, I was actually kind of rushed. And it took me, I was here until 5 a.m. one day.
Holy crap.
That was, yeah.
That's IT horror stories right there.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what that is.
That was when I was working until 2 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday. And then, so Thursday night I came here and I was here from 7 p.m. when me and Adam were live streaming. And then after we were done with our stream around like 10 or 11, then I stayed until 5 a.m. basically setting most of this up. And then I came the next couple days to finish some stuff up. So it took me one weekend, very quick, but it was many hours. But it was
at a suboptimal time.
It was a lot of fun though. That's the thing. Doing this again, I would charge more than I did for this, but it was a learning experience for me because I had never done this before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to just wire these phones up and set up this system. So I'm gonna we'll dial this and we'll hear their voicemail that we talked about. We won't pick up. But like we said earlier, the inbound call routing will send it to the all phones group.
For Steve in service, press 1. For Jim, press 2. For Norma, press 3. For Kathy, press 4.
So we'll hit 3. Oh, all right. Well, that was the wrong thing to hit. Bloopers. All right, so I'm gonna hit 4 now because that's what we want. So the way we have it set up, it actually will then ring the user's extension a couple more times. And we'll see if she set a voicemail. Nope.
3 is unavailable. Please leave your message after the tone. When done, hang up or press the pound key.
All right. What should we say in our message?
I don't know.
Okay. So we'll hang up there. So now if we come into our user control panel here and we refresh, it's cool because you can actually see, and they're asking us the extension again and password. But you can see here now we've got our voicemail. We can play it back. All right. What should we say in our message?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, the people who work here actually don't care about this feature that much.
Really?
Like, I showed them this, and they were like, oh, okay. Like, they still call into their phones, and they do it the way that they're used to. But, like, for me, I would love this.
I would, too. That'd be fantastic.
Way more than a normal having to call into a voicemail system. So you can listen to them, you can see the details for them visually, and then you can come in here and delete them, too. So right now, you can see there's this red light on the phone for having a voicemail. And I don't know if the camera can pick that red light up. I'm just going to hope it's picking that up, because if we come in here and we hit delete, you can download your voicemails, by the way, from the server if you want to, but then we can also delete. I'll click accept, and that light just turned off because we no longer have any new voicemails. So yeah, very cool. By the way, these phones are plugged into power bricks, but power over Ethernet would work with them. They just didn't have a power over Ethernet switch. They didn't want to buy converters. But yeah, that's the voicemail dashboard. And then there's one other web app I set up for them to use. It's called Flash Operator Panel 2. And it used to be a Flash application, as the name would suggest. It's not a Flash application anymore. Oh, and this one actually won't work using the IP address. I think we need to connect with the actual domain name. So let me try the domain name. There we go. So when we're connected through the actual domain name, you can see our HTTPS is nice and secure. And we can type in our extension and the Flash Operator Panel password. And it's trying to make me change the password. So you can see here, this was a cool thing I set up. They were asking me, one of the things they really wanted was they wanted a light for each line here. They have 4 users, right? They wanted the lights on the phone to show who was using the phone at any given time. That's actually really hard to do, because as soon as you assign this button that person's phone number, then what happens? When somebody calls that person's phone number, this phone rings.
Yeah.
They didn't want that. But they couldn't wrap their heads around why that doesn't work, because that's how it worked with their old PBX system. But what we gave them as a replacement was this Flash Operator Panel. Now you can see we're at extension 3 right now. I can pick this up, and I can dial... Actually, here, I won't dial my own cell phone number because I don't want it to show up here on screen, but I can dial extension 1. And you can see it pops up. It says, she's dialing out to extension 1, and that's been going for 4 seconds. And also it shows you that this person is getting a call from this person here.
And it's like instant, too. It doesn't...
It is absolutely, like I hang this up, it's real time. And this was made for people running call centers, right, to see large numbers of phones. But for these people here, they just wanted a way to not have to get up and walk to the other room to see if somebody's on the phone or not. They wanted to just be able to look and see who was using the phone and who's not. And this shows that extremely well. This also shows you some cool stuff like which of your trunks are being utilized. Let's say I call in again, I'm going to have to blur my cell phone number out of the screen, but that's all right. So I'm going to call then. You can see trunk number 1 is being utilized. Flash operator panel gives you a notice that you've got an incoming call. So we can pick that up, and now, of course, it's showing that allow notifications. Sure, it's showing that call is going, and it's showing that the trunk's in use. And this is what you get billed for, so this is cool to see, too. I mean, they get billed for having the trunk set up, not necessarily in use, but yeah, we can hang that up. So yeah, I was really impressed with all this free stuff that was out there, the tools for this.
Very, very functional.
Yeah.
More functional than Call Manager, it seems like to me.
Yeah.
Although we didn't dive that deep into Call Manager when we were using it, but
right.
I can only imagine, like, this would be a module on Call Manager. Like, if you want this functionality, that's an extra $10,000 or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was a separate web app that we're running on the same server as the actual call server. We'll go ahead and leave that page. But yeah, the FreePBX administration is really powerful for just doing this stuff through the web interface. We can actually SSH into the Call Manager server, or the FreePBX server as well. This is what this looks like. You can see it's saying that we've got some notifications, and it asks you to log into the UI to see them. It shows you your current network config, and this was up to date earlier, but it looks like it found some updates. So like I said, it's a CentOS box. We can just run yum update to update our packages, and then it also shows you if there are any PBX modules that are needing to be updated. But yeah, we can just update these. From what I've seen, running updates does not interrupt calls, but I try not to do it while people are here anyway.
How much setup did you have to do in the command line to get this going?
I basically did nothing in the command line. That was one thing that was very nice, was when I was setting this up, pretty much all of it was through the web interface. And it was still really complicated, but
it's easier to do.
One thing, I guess there was one thing I did use the command line for a lot, and that was logs. I'm going to SSH and open up another session here, since that's installing updates now. Let me cat out my bash history, and so you can see I've done a couple things. I've restarted some nodes when we were having issues. This was me setting up the flash operator panel too. And this was me setting up the firewall when this thing was first here. But if we go to varlog PBX and varlog, I guess varlog asterisk is the correct place. So if we do an ls-al here, these are the logs for the phone server basically. And so if we cat out full, this is actually the SIP event happening when people make and receive calls. So when I was setting this up and things weren't working yet because I didn't have trunks set up correctly, or I didn't have routes set up correctly, or modules weren't set up correctly, I would come in here to see the error messages, and then that would point me in the right direction of where to go in the web interface to fix it. So that was one thing that I was in the terminal a lot for, was viewing these logs when I was setting it up. But yeah, for the most part, FreePBX is it's a Linux distro, so it has its own installer. It looks very similar to the CentOS installer. You do need a 64-bit system for it, as I discovered. But yeah, you can just download it, and you can actually use the latest version of FreePBX with either the current or the last version of Asterisk too, or Asterisk. If you want to use an older, more stable version of Asterisk, you can do that even with the newer version of FreePBX, or you can upgrade your Asterisk without having to upgrade your FreePBX version. So very cool. And I would definitely recommend that anyone who's making a FreePBX setup, I would recommend that they take a look at the official phones, right? Like Sangoma is the company that sponsors FreePBX. Take a look at the Sangoma phones, because it's going to be a lot easier to set these up than these Cisco phones. There was stuff I had to go and spend a lot of time researching for some of these extended functions. because Cisco, like I said, they want you to use the Cisco Call Manager. They don't want you to use FreePBX necessarily. But it's very doable if you do go and research all the different numbers that you got to set everywhere and you make it all match. So yeah, Michael, I wanted you here for this video so that you could ask questions and stuff, but I realize I've done most of the talking. Thanks for sitting here and letting me show you the cool system that I set up, though. Like I said, I thought this might be something you're interested in.
It is. Well, and eventually, a couple of the places I work for, this is going to be a problem. Church, for example, still uses an ancient PBX, which will die eventually, and that will probably end up being my problem. So
yeah,
be expecting a call when that occurs.
Definitely. Yeah, I would love to do more of this stuff with more phones. It was really fun. It was really, even though I was here until 5 a.m., it was kind of cool being here at 3 a.m. and I'm calling phones and hearing phones ring, and that means something's working when the phone's ringing. So yeah. Let me know in the comments down below this video on YouTube Daily Motion or Nerd on the Street if any of you guys have questions, our viewers. Also, if you have questions about FreePBX, feel free to ask at the forums at nerdonthestreet.com, and I can try and answer. FreePBX does have its own forums and things too that you can ask around in. They've got some of the Sangoma developers hanging out in those. But for now, I guess that's everything we had to show. So I'm Jacob Kaufman.
I'm Michael Chanot.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Well, that looks like it was a pain in the ass.
It was.
Well, I bet just getting ringing working within the office probably wasn't too bad. The extension to extension within the office probably.
No,
wasn't.
it was. That was probably harder than the external stuff, because the external stuff I had to call Charter and have them open the ports up. But the internal stuff, it was getting these working with the free server.
Yeah, how much are this whatever?
These were $50, $60.
What's the ones you? I forgot the company.
They're $150 per phone for the cheap ones, I think.
That'd be worth it.
So.
Ubiquiti has phones. I wonder.
Oh yeah, theirs would probably work better. I mean, at least they would work as well, because anything that's SIP would work.